First things first, shout out to EA Sports for finally resurrecting college football in the video game arena. My personal favorite was NCAA Football '06 with that race to the Heisman mode where you could transition to Madden '06's NFL Superstar mode if you wanted with Xbox or PS2. I had mine on PS2. Now, college football was buried since 2014, with NCAA 14 being the last installment, and guys had to survive off of that one for 10 plus years or the older games. With the game's price on the internet at one point, if you looked on eBay, it was over $100, which is crazy. But it's basically because it was the last of a dying breed. Now, in 2019, a man named Daryl Holt, shout out to him, he works for EA. He pitched the game to EA as a company. It was greenlit shortly after. Now, in 2021, it was announced that college football would return for sure. We just didn't know when. Now, the game originally was cut back in the old days because of the NIL issues, and understandably so. I mean, these guys, they're not kids, they're not children, they're adults, 18 and up, and they decided to take a stand and try to start making some more money and take a larger slice of the pie. Hats off to them. Now, EA, they took their time, they let this game slow cook, basically only coming out on the current gen systems with complete devotion to its development from EA Orlando. Now let's get into it. Is the game actually worth it? Take it from me, I game quite often. I've never pre-ordered a game in my life. This is the first game I've pre-ordered, and the only reason I did it is because worst case scenario, if they decided to never make the game again, I would have a copy of a rare game that would increase in value over time if the college players ever wanted to opt out in the future. And best case scenario, it would be a generational game that I could properly enjoy for years to come. Now we'll start off with a few pros. The game's opening intro with that Welcome to the Jungle theme, it's beautiful. No other word for it. They kind of know how to play on the heartstrings, with those cuts of Boise State, the grass, Alabama, LSU, USC. It's in 4K definition, all the school traditions on full display prior to the game booting up. Now, the teams, they have a great lineup of the uniforms, with big teams obviously getting more of the throwbacks, and some of the small teams actually had some variety as well. It's not like it's devoid of choices. I mean, a team like Northwestern, they had a nice set of unis when I originally chose to play with them in Road to Glory. That is not known as a football school by any means. Presentation overall, it's better than Madden, but it still leaves a few things to be desired, like the halftime show. It's just not as good as other sports games, like a 17-year-old game. NBA 2K7, the halftime show with Kenny's highlights was a little bit sharper and more detailed than this halftime show. So I mean, the shiftiness of the players, that's excellent. If you're one of those guys, one of them boys who's good on the sticks, you're gonna love the juke system. With these guys basically having all the hezzy moves ready to go out the box. I mean, the stutter step hezzy. If you get one of them SEC running backs or wideouts, you're gonna have a lot of folks sliding everywhere. That spin move is definitely lethal as well. Now, the kicking meter, I personally like it. I think it's good because, let's be frank, kicking is a highly disrespected part of the game, but all the good teams in the NFL have a great/good kicker. The kicking meter, if you are clicking A mindlessly trying to get the transition to the transition scenes, or the guy they show the crowd, you're trying to skip it, you could accidentally hit the meter and you could miss it by getting that red or the yellow prematurely. So you got to hit that yellow green area and basically try to hit the green as much as possible without holding for too long, because if you hit it past that red marker for the full kick, if you get that point, you're probably going to bang it off the upright. So it adds a lot of nuance to the game. I like this because it makes you truly weigh your options, in the actual moment of the game, because really, is your team good enough to convert on a 4th and 3? It makes you feel the flow of the game. Are you willing to risk it? Is my defense good enough to hold against this guy or the computer that I'm playing? Does my kicker have enough leg strength to knock it through from 45 yards out, which isn't a crazy length, but for some of these smaller teams, they might not have a good kicker, and that adds a new wrinkle to the game instead of banking on an easy extra point or 3 points. Now, the passing system, it works very similarly to Madden, except it works a little bit better in my opinion. If you use a guy like Quinn Ewers on Texas, slinging the rock it's pretty easy to place the ball wherever you want. When using some other QBs, the ball gets underthrown, which in this game it's easy to pick, and you start to experiment with the QBs on the bench depending on what kind of scheme you're running. Some people are huge users of the option. I'm not. Some want good throwing power, others want throwing accuracy to be high. But it's like real life. Sometimes the diamond in the rough is on the bench, and it's up to you to find them. Now, the blocking is okay. You're probably going to have to shift the blockers and keep the running back in the backfield to help the O-line if you're playing with a non-ranked school. I mean, that's fair play. Smaller team, usually less talent. Special teams is good overall. No complaints with the kicking system or the returning system. which basically you have a good chance of returning it probably every game or so, which is pretty realistic if you're playing a full-length game. My real gripe with this game so far is on the defensive side of the ball, gameplay-wise. Shout out to my older cousin. He played safety in college some years back, and he would always shred me in Madden, and I learned from him that if you're going to get serious with playing football on Madden or any of these college football games, you basically have to play as the defensive back to create turnovers and help cause coverage sacks. In this game, you can play great defense by beating your man there, anticipating if you're playing as defensive back. However, the amount of missed tackles in this game is extremely frustrating, especially for the defensive backs. Now, I know they're not known for tackling, and in the open field, it's very difficult to make a tackle. However, in the open field, if you get contact with a guy, it's almost guaranteed for the runner, the ball carrier, to break at least one tackle. And yes, I know tackling, I mean, it's not easy in that open field, but come on, these guys, not everybody's Noel Devine and Reggie Bush in their prime, breaking 2 to 3 tackles back to back. That's not supposed to be commonplace. It's supposed to be a very select few. I mean, if you love defense, it's going to be frustrating, especially if you see a guy bounce off the ball carrier, like he dives towards him and he bounces off, he ricochets off. If you love offense, this game's going to be very enjoyable. If you love defense, it's going to leave a lot to be desired. You're going to be frustrated quite a bit, especially if you play on the higher modes like All-American or Heisman. Now, we're going to cover the modes. I'm not an Ultimate Team guy. I'm not a big supporter of pack openings and all that crap. I already paid for the game. I'm not paying for the chance, the quote-unquote chance to get a player that's good on my team. So let's address the mini camp training games. I like this mode because since Madden 03, it's a nice way to kind of add some nuance to the game outside of just exhibition and practice mode, along with Dynasty, to kind of sharpen up on your skills and just build up points. If you're like in a position battle and Road to Glory, it's good to practice with. Now, Road to Glory, this should be played at whatever patience level you have. I would highly suggest, if you're a busy guy, pick either 5-star or 4-star so you get some playing time immediately. If you decide to go down the path of no return that I did with Underdog, you will spend at least one season on the bench waiting for someone to slip up and piss the coach off. Because I played with injuries turned off. I don't like playing with injuries on in sports games, but I'm sure if injuries were on, I'd probably have an earlier shot. I probably would have gone from 3rd string to starter much quicker. I decided to go to Northwestern. I did horribly on the initial drills, not realizing the long-term implications, and had to wait until the next year, halfway through the year, to get an opportunity. I ended up taking over the starting QB spot, threw like 29 touchdowns, 1 interception, and was undefeated in 5 games as a starter. Now, I had earned the coach trust points, because that's the system in this game, the coach trust points, and was the undisputed starter for next season. That should have been me. The coach had the backup QB as the starter for game 1 with no explanation, and the position battle was triggered right before game 2 of my second active season, where I killed him and I was named starter again. And I went on to have like a Heisman season, and we ended up going to the title. We did the whole thing. But I have to ding EA for that, because in other games, RPG modes like 2K11 and My Player 13 years ago, they didn't make these kind of mistakes. Madden 06, NCAA 06, they didn't make these kind of mistakes. So that was very irritating, because I almost didn't win the Heisman because of that one game I missed in the beginning of the season, where the computer, for whatever reason, decided to bench me, even though I was the clear starter and obviously the better quarterback. But I think EA assumed that most people would probably go the route of the blue chip or the 5-star recruit. I think they paid a little bit less attention to the underdog section, the bottom 2 rungs of that ranking system. So definitely it's more of a challenge, and if you don't have the patience to sim through and wait for the full season doing the grades and stuff, I would just go blue chip or 5-star. Now, the dynasty mode, that has some promise with the different dynamics of running a college football program. I tried to create a football dynasty with FIU. Shout out to the Panthers, and from the get-go, I mean, you get a good feel for what a program like this has to go through. Most students you're going to scout, they're going to be basically 1, 2, 3 stars, and the 3 stars are going to look at your school like a joke. In order for you to recruit them, you have to get creative and do things like speak to their family, scout their IG page, send them a DM, and if you want to be thirsty, send the house. You can call me childish if you want, but I'm not sending no damn house to get you to come to the school. I'll send a bag, I want you to eat, but I'm not begging. Scheduling for someone to visit your school is a great component, and it will have some sway getting them interested in what you have going on. Playing with a team as bad as FIU it has you realize how high-powered some of these teams are, like Texas, Alabama, Oregon, Michigan. I mean, passes get dropped when they get hit in the numbers. Blockers get beat easily by slow linemen, weak linemen. The kickers are inaccurate. With any issue with the meter, it's going to get exposed by being wide right or left. It's fun because when someone drops the ball, you may want to bench the guy or slam the controller. But when he catches a slant and takes it to the house or gets to the one, you get excited as hell. So, I mean, that's kind of the ups and downs of running a team like that. And you get to see the building over the course of the year. The stands go from empty to where you're in a championship game like the CUSA that I was in. The stands are absolutely packed. It's a madhouse. So the championship celebrations, they're straight, but they definitely didn't get as much attention to detail as the team intros. Now, as an honest consumer, I don't like the fact that we can't create teams and players, but let's address the issue. The reason that we can't, that we don't have that feature, is allegedly because the case NCAA versus Alston, where due to the case and the court ruling for NCAA players needing to be compensated for their use in the game for profit, EA Sports placed a provision where the game would not include the ability to create a player, so that way people couldn't create players that decided to not opt into the game. Now, EA's compensation package for every player who opted into the game was $600 and a copy of the game. Players who opted, or not opted out, but who did not opt in, would be replaced by generic players. Now, the reason I didn't really like this, I mean, I get it, but I didn't really like this from EA is that other games where people didn't want to be included, like the NBA 2K series and Charles Barkley is not in that game, and he specifically stated that, don't put me in that game if you're not going to send a check to like the retired players, guys like Dan Marley, Kevin Johnson. I mean, those are his teammates, but to the Retired Players Association, they know what number he wants. He doesn't want it to go to him. He wants to go to the Retired Players Association, which they can easily do. But 2K, since they're not going to do that for him, they're not going to include Charles Barkley in the game, but they still have create a player in the game. So, I mean, I think there's some way for them to possibly work it out. However, the reason I'm not going to ding them, I'm not going to truly ding EA is because legally they had to protect themselves. And I'm not sending them a check. I don't know if you're going to send them a check when they get that lawsuit from a player, but I'm not sending it. So I get it. The bean counters, those guys, they kind of said, we're not doing that. Now, they don't need any of those cats, send them subpoenas, letters in the mail asking for extra funds. So I'm going to not ding them as hard, but definitely I didn't like that. I'm definitely choosing the game, in terms of would you rather have the game but not that feature, or have the feature but you're not going to have anywhere near as close of a game. I'm definitely going to choose the game, but to have it be $70 and something so basic can't be included, where you can't even create a team, just using the generic players that are in the game or the players that opted in, that's crazy. If the game was released at $50 or $60, people probably would have pulled the trigger on that purchase much quicker as well, and they'll probably sell out of this game extremely quickly. The menus are cool, but they kind of have a college/school feel to them, which is good aesthetic-wise, but they are slightly unresponsive. And if you're busy, you're trying to get through the thing quickly, scan the roster for a hidden gem, it can kind of get frustrating moving through the menus. The menu music is slightly underwhelming, with it being that stock snare drum and trumpet music. I mean, it's okay. It's not bad. It's just not truly memorable long term. I kind of grew up listening to that Sam Spence in the NFL games, some of the other NCAA games where they had the classic rap, rock, country songs, etc., and those different variations. I think adding the school fight songs would have been a nice touch to the menu since they already have them in the game. A dream would be, use of that college football and CBS theme in the game, but we all know that's not happening. Now, the big takeaways from this game, I would say this game is the culmination or the result of passion meets pencil pushers and bean counters. I can see where the passion was in the development of this game, with dedication, team celebrations, with turnovers, Colorado with their throne celebration, the U having that turnover chain, how difficult it is to play with the away team. If you're like me, you like the hot route based on what the defense is giving you. You're trying to do that while playing in Death Valley. It's basically next to impossible. Your wideout's probably going to run the wrong route, leading to a potential pick if you're somebody who throws purely off anticipation. The game is held back by the EA bean counters, with the need to waste resources on a gambling section, which is Ultimate Team, which preys upon children using their parents' credit cards to go crazy with loading up the roster. Dynasty is well thought out, and I can see the progression of my fledgling football program, with the stands mostly empty in some sections to start, to basically being a packed madhouse, where recruits are actually interested in coming, because we finally have some sort of championship pedigree. The game, it has a lot of red tape that they had to deal with, limiting the ability for the gamer to create teams, players, arenas, but hopefully there's some form of a resolution that can be made to ensure that the franchise takes a proper step in the right direction. I'll probably have to give the game a solid 7.5 out of 10. To take this game to that status of legendary, I would say the music could include some more classics. The Road to Glory mode could definitely use some polishing, and some form of creativity needs to be brought back into the mix to allow the gamer to take control and enjoy the experience. I mean, for a $70 game, we got to review it with a more critical eye, because if it was $50 or $60, I'd probably rate the game as an 8 out of 10. But I think around, I just think about your budget. I don't care how much money I have. I always remember being flat broke, and I could basically stretch an old game for a very long time. So College Football 25 is pretty good, but I would probably wait for it to go on sale or use a coupon. Try and get this game at a discount after the first 2 weeks of the season. Or if it goes on sale, get the disc version for sure. Not the digital, get the disc, just in case there's some funny business with the licensing in the future and they want to cut the game like how they did back in the day. Now, I have a few projects dropping soon. Stay tuned. Don't be mad at me, be mad at yourself.